Are you considering moving to Florida? Well, today I want to share with you things to consider before moving to Florida. First off, let me introduce myself. My name is Troy Funk, and that's Funk, F-U-N-K, Funk, and I am a licensed real estate broker here in the state of Florida. I've been a resident and I've been in sales going on 4 decades, 40 years, and in that time I've seen a lot of change to Florida, and my focus today is to give you some value. And if I do, please hit that like button. If you're not already a subscriber, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so we can stay in touch. So I want to talk about 10 things to consider before moving to Florida. Now, first off, let me give you some perspective where I'm at right now. I am at the Bayfront Park in Sarasota, Florida, and this is an absolutely beautiful area. I'm going to share some B-roll to show you how pretty this is and why so many people want to come to Florida, especially this location here in Sarasota. What are things to consider before moving to Florida? Well, let me just dive right into it. Number one is it is an illusion, or it can be an illusion to move to Florida. If you're coming to Florida and you pass the state line, you're going to see the Welcome Center. And when you go into the Welcome Center, you're normally offered either orange juice or grapefruit juice, and from there, there's a lot. It shows all the options and all the fun things to do in Florida, and Florida is a fun place to vacation, and that's where the illusion comes in sometimes, that people love Florida while they're on vacation, and then they think, well, if I move here, my life will be on vacation as well, and that's not always the truth. You know, it depends on where you are in your life cycle and what you're looking to do when you come to Florida. But Florida can be an illusion, and what's interesting about that is a lot of people that do move to Florida end up moving back to where they came from, because they came to Florida on vacation, they had an amazing time, and then they realize it's very different living here as opposed to coming here on vacation. So we see people moving in and moving back. And as a real estate agent, of course, that's been very good for me, but I see the cycle happen on a regular basis. And just understanding that the vacation lifestyle may look like an illusion when you come here, but it could be very different. There are things to consider when you are moving to Florida. Number two, it's hot here in Florida. It certainly can be. The key months to be in Florida are January, February, and March. Those are the best months. That's when it's actually really cold up north, so we have a lot of northerners coming down to Florida at that time. That's also the time that rents triple. If you're looking for a short-term rental and you don't care when you come to Florida, understand you're going to pay 3 times the rent to come in season. Now, that's when most people want to be in Florida, the January, February, March time period. The rest of the year can feel very hot. Now, December gets in the 50s, and to a Floridian that feels very cold because I've adapted to living in a warm climate. So 50 is cold to me. And I asked my brother. Now, my brother lives in Connecticut, which I love Connecticut. It's a beautiful place. I asked Ryan, how can you live in a place that's so cold? And his response to me is, I just embrace it. I love the cold. He has a quad. He really enjoys the cold weather, and I feel the same way about Florida. I've embraced the warm weather, and to the point where 50 degrees is cold to me, but I like the warm weather. But not everybody does, and when you come to Florida, the hot weather may be a problem. Now, as such, a lot of people do prefer to come down to Florida just during the season period, and they have second homes. They have a winter home in Florida, and they have a summer home up north, like my parents that live in the Carolinas. During the cold months, they are here in Florida, and in the summer months, they like coming down to Florida. And that's normally the norm, that if you have the ability to do that, a lot of people use Florida just as a second residence. Florida is a hot place to be. If you're going to be here 24/7 throughout the year, understand Florida can be a hot place to be. Number 3, when you live in Florida, you live in the tropics, and that comes with tropical weather, including hurricanes. And Florida has hurricane season, so there's a season that we're concerned with hurricanes. Now, I've been in Florida 40 years. I've been through a lot of hurricanes, and we prepare for every time we hear there's a named storm out there in the water. Rarely has it come to shore, or at least not in our area. It's a calculated risk of living in Florida, that there are hurricanes. But I think what's more interesting about the weather is just the weather pattern, because it rains here a lot. Now, we are having a beautiful day here in Florida, and most days I think are absolutely beautiful. But tomorrow it's going to storm. And how long do the storms last? Sometimes not long at all. In fact, you can have a beautiful day like today, and within an hour it'll rain, and then the next hour it's bright and sunny. So you get used to that in Florida. You're going to get a lot of water, and it's going to come and it's going to go. And if you want to plant anything in your yard, it will grow abundantly. Because in the tropics, the heat and the constant water, things grow really well here. And that's why Florida is such a green state. And it kind of keeps our air clean and such. So it's always moving. It's always a moving target. But when you live in Florida, you live in the tropics. Number 4. It's expensive to live in Florida, or it certainly has become a place that is more expensive to live, especially in the last couple years. We have seen one of the biggest spikes in real estate values, and rents, especially rents, have come way up. And now we're in a different market. I recently did a video titled "Florida Real Estate Prices Falling." That video is almost at 200,000 views, but what was interesting was that video, for the most part, is well liked. It's very well received. I have had a lot of positive feedback on where we are with the real estate market here in Florida. But there's, no question, it's become more expensive to live in Florida. And what does that mean? Well, one aspect was this last hurricane that hit Fort Myers. After the hurricane, I got my new insurance bill. And I did a video on that one as well, showing you what my new insurance was on my house. And to give you the cliff notes, let's just say my insurance went up $3,600 a year. That means my housing payment just went up $300 a month. Now that all adds up. Unexpectedly, I now have to pay $300 more a month in expenses to live in Florida. But you got to look at the whole big picture when you're looking at Florida, because in Florida we do not have any state income tax, and I think property taxes are actually low when you look at other parts of the country. And so when you equate that whole aspect of, okay, we don't have state income tax, your property taxes may be low here depending on where you're at or where you're coming from. Insurance is high. I mean, it's gone up, and will it continue to go up? Yeah, especially when you're in a tropical state that gets hurricanes. Now, there's this misconception that all the insurance companies are going broke. That's not true, because I have insurance, and my insurance agent said there's 10 people we can put your insurance with, but she also said, if you really want to save on your insurance, get a new roof. Which, oh my gosh, right? So, like I said, this can be an expensive state to live in. It's become more expensive over the last 2 years. So when you're thinking of moving to Florida, you have to do your math. You have to look at the big picture of all the expenses, especially insurance, because insurance has gone way up. Number 5 is politics. In my going on 40 years in real estate, I have never seen politics as a reason that our market has done so much better. But Florida, yes, it's interesting. And we've seen more Californians move to Florida than I have ever seen. And the reason a lot is politics. Florida is a melting pot of people from all over the United States. And they have different ways of looking at life, and certainly politics is a big aspect of it. Historically, Florida has been more of a swing state, but it is definitely more red now than it is blue, as the former president lives here in Florida, and our governor is very well liked by the majority. Now, it's interesting, you can look at some of the comments, and some people say, Florida, I hate Florida, but you have a good governor. Now, it's all perspective, but it's interesting about politics. Now, if you are probably more blue than red, you're going to be offended here, because it's kind of in your face all the time. As far as there's still protesting going on over the last election. My own political viewpoint is this. I look at a time period, the first time I went to the White House, and my wife and I at that time, were there, and there was protesting going on in front of the White House. Now, I don't remember who the president was, so it wasn't a red or blue thing. It was just the fact that there's protesting going on against our government. And my wife was really offended by it. She didn't like all the protesting going on. You know, and I kind of told her, I said, I actually see this completely different. I mean, what other country can we speak our mind? Can we actually do a friendly protesting and speak our mind? Now, we're not going to get arrested for speaking our mind, and our lives are not in danger. So we do have the freedom of speech, and that politics is a subject that you can quickly make or break friends. And Florida is a melting pot of people from all over coming here. So politics has been a reason that has driven a lot of people to Florida, and also a reason why some people just don't like it here. Depends on your belief system, but it's something to be aware of when you're thinking of moving to Florida. Number 6 is deed restrictions. Deed restrictions are a big deal here in Florida. When you come to our state, you're either going to live in a deed restricted community or a non-deed restricted community. And what are the differences? Well, most new construction is in deed restricted communities, especially if it's a planned community. Now, I did another video that talks about a community here in our area known as Welland Park. And what does that mean as far as deed restrictions, new versus non-deed restricted communities? Now, the cliff notes on that are when you live in a deed restricted community, you have association fees. Now, sometimes not only do you have association fees, you have what are known as CDD fees, which is another association fee on top of your association fee. So you pay to live in your association, in your either condo or homeowners area neighborhood, and then you pay to live in the master community that governs the whole area. What's the big deal about HOA fees or condo fees here in Florida? Well, it depends on what you're looking for. Now, they can be very expensive. I recently showed a property, and it was in a golf course community, and it was absolutely very special. If you're a golfer, that's the right place to be. If you're not a golfer, you're looking at $700 plus a month to live in this development. And that's a lot of money if you don't play golf. So you have to look at what are the important things to you in your community. And let's just say, worst case scenario, you don't pay your HOA fees. That's where it gets challenging, because here in Florida, HOAs and condo associations are much stronger legally than banks. And I've learned that through helping many people through foreclosure that can't pay their mortgage, and then they don't pay their HOA fees. And I always encourage the owner, if you can pay your condo fees or HOA fees, please do that, because they're going to foreclose much faster than the bank will. I've seen banks take extended period of time. You could negotiate with the bank, you can get a short sale with the bank in some cases, but associations, the problem is when you stop making your fees, they start adding all their legal fees on top of that, which they charge you for to pay it off. And I've seen many associations foreclose on property where the owner just can't afford their HOA fees or condo fees. So that's one thing to consider when you're moving to Florida, is there's a lot of choices for lifestyle and opportunities. If you want a secure area, you want a safe area, and you go into a gated community, you're going to pay for it with HOA fees or condo fees. And that is an issue when you're looking for new construction. Know that in most cases, you're going to look at paying HOA or condo fees. Number 7 is non-deed restricted communities. Let's just say you want a house, you don't want to pay HOA fees, and you don't want someone telling you what you can and can't do with that property, your own house, right? So a lot of people don't want deed restrictions. So here's the reality of that situation. If you're looking for a home and you want non-deed restricted, you're typically going to need to look at older homes in communities that don't have HOAs. And the other aspect of that is some people just find the perfect lot, and it may be an existing house, and they tear the house down if they want new construction. So that leads to two aspects of non-deed restrictions here in Florida. The two big aspects of that is, one has been gentrification, because you have so much growth coming into Florida that they go into these neighborhoods and they gentrify it. They make it newer, nicer, and the property values go through the roof. And some buyers are just surprised that, hey, I could have bought that house for this a year ago. Well, you didn't. That's the reality. And because you didn't, and gentrification came in the area, property values went way up. So gentrification is one aspect of a non-deed restricted community, already buying a home in an area that you might find more convenient, but you may be in an older area, some time ago was actually not considered a choice location. But the other aspect of non-deed restrictions, especially here in Florida is a vacation destination. People are buying vacation rentals all over the state of Florida, even at the multi-million-dollar price point. I had sold a multi-million-dollar property on Lido, and they turned it into an Airbnb. Now, you can understand the neighbors were not excited about that situation at all, because now, instead of having just a winter resident, they basically feel like they live next to a hotel. Now, so that's a perspective of buying a home in a non-deed restricted community, is that you may be the investor that buys that property as a vacation rental and turns it into a vacation rental, or you may in fact live next to what you'll feel like is a hotel with people coming and going. So that's the reality of a non-deed restricted community here in Florida. Lack of affordability. Prices have gone up so much in Florida. Rents have gone up so much. The cost of housing has gone up. And what was affordable at one point isn't affordable anymore. And a lot of people look back and realize, I could have bought this home a couple years ago for this, and now look at the value. That makes no sense. I could afford it once, I can't afford it now. So a lot of people are actually looking forward to a crash where property values go down. And because they're not affordable anymore, and that would make sense. Who's going to afford to buy these homes because they're not affordable? From my place in life, I go back to the fact that I grew up in California, and we lived in Santa Barbara, and I had an amazing life growing up there. And I remember my parents had their house for sale when the interest rate was about 14%, and it wasn't selling right away, and they had multiple offers for lower than the asking price, and they were holding out, and they eventually got their price. But what was crazy about that whole situation was that there were very few people in the marketplace that could afford to buy a house 40 years ago in California. And as such, the house across the street sold to two families. Two single men bought the home, and they brought their girlfriends in. So it took two households to buy a house. And that what was really awkward is I remember one house around the area in Santa Barbara where it took three families to qualify to purchase a house, and one of the families was living in the garage. And that just was awkward, because we had a very nice home and we were able to afford it when we bought it, but when we sold it, I know my parents saying, we couldn't afford to buy this house back. We couldn't qualify if we were starting from ground zero. So property values, it doesn't make sense. Why would they ever go up from that point? Well, they've gone up. They've gone up a lot. I mean, the house that I grew up in is well over $1 million plus more than what my parents sold the house for 40 years ago. And the demand to live in Santa Barbara is good. So the issue of affordability is not always an aspect of properties going up. It's always an aspect of supply and demand. Area like Santa Barbara had a lot of demand, limited supply. People that could afford it. Well, we're seeing that happen with the same situation. A lot of people are just waiting for the whole market to crash. And I'm a big believer that every market is different. We are seeing adjustments because, of course, that has an impact on what people can buy. But the upward pressure coming to Florida, that people that want to move here, is still great. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know where the market is going to go. And again, check out my video. I've got a lot of response to that, and especially the comments. I've had over 500 comments on market values here in Florida and what their perspective is. But the reality is we have a problem here where we just don't have the affordability. Before you move here, you have to do the math. And there are solutions to that. Number one is just look at what else is possible, because you may want to live in Sarasota, but the reality is to get a new home Look at Bradenton, look at Palmetto, look at Parrish, look at Northport. There are areas surrounding the area where you can be close to Sarasota, but the affordability is much less because you're not right in a high destination location. So yes, affordability has become a big problem here in Florida. When you move to Florida, expect your friends and family to follow. And we see that happen consistently. It takes just one to plant the seed of moving to Florida, and once they have a spot, their family starts coming down with them. Now, one downside to that, and it depends on who you are, but I have a customer that I was showing property to, and she was real clear. I don't want a guest room, I want a smaller place because I don't want to become the hostess to all my friends that want to visit Florida. They can check out a hotel, but I don't want to provide for them an Airbnb without expense because I am fortunate enough to live in Florida. So that could be a downside when you move to Florida. Just be warned that you may become an unplanned host or hostess to all the friends and family that now recognize that somebody they know has a place in Florida. And closing, I hope I've been helpful to you. If I have, please hit that like button. If you have not already subscribed, please subscribe, hit the little bell. And just an insight, my name, Troy Funk, F-U-N-K, last name, is my website. That website will show you new construction throughout the whole state of Florida. It gives you access to resale properties, properties that are in pre-foreclosure, and also properties that have been foreclosed. So it's a good way to just research the market for Florida if you're coming down to Florida. And if you are, I hope you look me up. Please leave a comment, and I look forward to hearing from you and seeing you on my next video.